On this week, Women's Talk, we're talking about staying healthy during the holidays, which is easier said than done, right? So this time of year can be super, super stressful. While Christmas and holidays should be joyous, a joyous time for so many, it can also be a time of much sadness, grieving, or just being alone. So with so much going on and trying to be in several places at once, we often can also wear ourselves down and end up getting sick. So today we have two incredible guests joining us to share tips on how to stay mentally and physically healthy. Welcome, Dr. Alicia Reed, a self-care strategist, pharmacist, and founder of the lifestyle brand Fly with Alicia Reed, and Dr. Nicole Christian Brathwaite, a double board certified psychiatrist who is the head of medical and clinical strategy at Headway and CEO and founder of Well Minds Psychiatric and Consulting. Welcome, ladies, to Women Talk. I am so happy to have you join us today.
Thank you for having us.
So, Dr. Nicole, I'm going to kick it off with you. As we all know, the holidays can be a very exciting time, but it can also be stressful with so much going on and getting spread so thin. What are some of the practical tips for managing stress during this time?
Thank you. That's a great question that I often end up talking to a lot of my patients about. And one of the first things we discuss is planning ahead. Sometimes there's always going to be unexpected, but as much as we can control, let's control that. Let's determine what time we're arriving and what time we're leaving and stick to that. Let's plan exactly where we're going, who we're bringing with us, talking to people ahead of time. And, again, many things are outside of our control, but there's a lot of safety that comes when we try to control what we can control, when we're clear about what things we can or can't change. So that would be one of the first things. The second thing I often recommend is let's be realistic. We always say, I'm going to lose 30 pounds by Christmas. I am going to by myself cook a 5-course meal for 40 people. That sounds lovely, but that's unnecessary stress. And it's putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to be everything. And, as women, we always expect to be super women, but it's unrealistic and it's burdensome. And my grandmother used to always say, you can't pour from an empty glass. So if we aren't setting realistic expectations, if we aren't prioritizing ourselves, ultimately it hurts everyone around us.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I think people want to help, right? That's part of the fun of the holidays. So being able to delegate or say, like you said, planning ahead, I think is so important. And so planning your menu and saying, hey, can someone bring an appetizer? Can someone bring a dessert? Like, it makes people feel part of it. And everyone does want to show up with something. So you might as well have it be part of your meal or your plan. And it makes, I just think it makes it for a happier and healthier evening, to be honest. So I love those suggestions. Dr. Alicia, there are so many good foods being passed around during the holidays. What are some strategies? I don't even know if strategy is the right word here, but what are some tips to enjoy, but not completely indulge?
Well, the holidays, of course, are when, we gather, and I live in New Orleans. So gumbo is one of the things that I'm looking forward to, especially, and the sweet, right? So it's very important to first off, think about, most people are stressed and some people tend to be emotional eaters. I know I'm one of them. So I often grab for the sweets, grab for something salty. So during the holidays, I practice mindfulness, like mindful eating. And that's one of the techniques or strategies that have been most helpful for me because, when I'm eating, I try to limit distractions. So most of us will eat in front of the TV or, and not really focus on what we're eating. And then that leads to overeating. So I practice mindfulness. And then I also try to enjoy what I'm eating. Like, instead of just, chomping away at whatever's there just because it's there, just really enjoy it and connect with the senses, really taste it. And lastly, try to make sure that there are healthy choices available. I know, you just mentioned to alleviate some of the stress by delegating and bringing different dishes. If I'm the one that's bringing the fruit plate, or, something that's a healthier option, then I have a choice to indulge in something that may be healthier or have less salt, or be a healthier option. So I think those are all great ways that we can still enjoy the food that's there during the holidays, but maybe make healthier choices.
I love that. I love those suggestions, and bring your own, like bring enough for everyone, but you make sure you bring the vegetable platter or something that you know that there's going to be some healthy choices there because you're bringing it. I love that. Dr. Nicole, back to you. So many of us are surrounded by friends and family during the holiday season, which can be wonderful, but it also can be a little bit overwhelming. And so in terms of taking care of our mental health during this time, what are your recommendations on setting healthy boundaries with family members? Can we do that?
It's definitely a challenge that probably requires a lot of practice. But in general, I think these are tools that we need to remember. But number one, no is a complete sentence, right? It doesn't require explanation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you said no. And I always use this phrase: limits are loving and boundaries are beneficial. So by setting clear limits, we're letting people know, I care about you, but this is what I'm able to do. And I care about you and me so much that I'm setting this limit so that we can maintain this healthy relationship or these healthy boundaries. And we all have those families that just don't understand personal space. They don't understand boundaries. And those are the people that will be most challenged. But again, in the end, you have to prioritize you, right? Because ultimately, if you're tired, if you're irritable, you're setting yourself up. You're setting your family members up. And so it's very clear, again, as I mentioned earlier, even planning in advance, setting the expectations around what your boundaries will be in advance. I'm arriving at this time, and unfortunately, I'll have to leave at that time.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me. Or even letting your aunt or uncle know, like, I can't wait to come, but please let cousin so-and-so know we're not talking about politics. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. So if that happens, please know that I plan to leave the table. And being clear and being comfortable following through. And the only other thing I would say is trying to maintain structure when family's over, friends are over, we're going out at night, we're doing a lot of things, but as much as you can, sticking to your bedtime, sticking to the structure you normally have when it's not the holidays, so that you don't feel so disorganized during that period of time.
I love that. And I think it is so smart. And I love the idea of, like, even, incorporating another family member, sister, brother, or aunt, and just saying, you know how I feel. So if the conversation starts going into the politics, I'm going to do a quick exit, or, have my back. I love that idea. And I will be borrowing some of those suggestions for this upcoming holiday. Dr. Alicia, in terms of physical health during the holidays, what vaccines should we make sure to prioritize this season? And I'm just going to also bring up the importance of understanding that some vaccines you may have a side effect to. So I just wanted to bring that up as the holidays are approaching so fast. And the second part of it, so, what vaccines, if we have not gotten vaccinated yet, and we're a couple weeks out from, Christmas and Hanukkah, what vaccines would you recommend? And can you talk about the triple demic that's going on right now? So you have a two-part question.
Well, absolutely. Making sure that we stay healthy for the holidays is very important. But we also want to make sure that those that we come in contact with and we're around stay healthy. We're visiting our families, so we're around our grandparents, our older family members, our aunts, and we want to make sure that we are able to protect them as well as protect ourselves. And one of the best ways to protect ourselves is to be vaccinated. And as you just mentioned, there is a triple demic happening right now. It's RSV, which is affecting our babies and some adults. COVID is still here, and the flu season has ramped up. So hospitals are seeing a rise in cases around the board. And two of those viruses have vaccinations. So there's the COVID booster, which is available, the bivalent vaccine. So if you have not been vaccinated, this will be the time to get vaccinated with your initial COVID vaccine. But the booster is most important right now because it is the bivalent booster. It is available to, right now to ages 5 and up. So it's just been expanded. So you want to make sure that you're vaccinated, and also the flu vaccine. The science has shown right now that the flu vaccine has been very helpful for the strain that's circulating right now. So that's a good thing. Now, it's important to remember that vaccines don't prevent you from getting the flu or getting COVID, but it also decreases the likelihood of you being severely ill. So that's important to note, that you want to make sure that you get these vaccinations. They can be administered together. So you can get the COVID vaccine and the flu vaccine at once. You can get them both and it'd be one and done. They get the booster and the flu vaccine. So those are recommendations definitely now. It takes about 2 weeks for you to see the immunity for the COVID booster. So you want to get that now. And, and as the holiday season is approaching, thinking about travel, you're being exposed to different people in different cities, and that's how it spreads. So I would definitely recommend getting vaccinated if you have not been.
I love that advice. And I just think as women, we need to think about prioritizing our health, because just think, if we're not there to kind of manage the holidays, it could go south very fast. So take care of you. If you have not gotten the COVID booster, now's the time to do it. You can do the flu in one arm and the booster in the other. I did both at the same time. And I have to say, I felt it a little bit. It didn't knock me out completely, but I did, all of a sudden I was grocery shopping and thinking I don't feel so good. What's wrong? And then I'm like, oh, I got my flu and COVID, but it was fine. It was a good night's sleep, and I was, rallying the next day. So I do think, as we're thinking about the holidays, and especially being around, older and younger people, it is important to not only take care of you, but also help protect them. So thank you for that advice. Dr. Nicole, back to you. For many of us, the holidays can be a celebration, but for others, it can also be a reminder of losing loved ones. Is there any guidance for our audience in how to navigate grief during the holiday season?
And this is a really difficult question. And I know Dr. Alicia also wants to chime in, but one thing I think it's important to do is to not pretend like we're not hurting, to not try to hide our grief. Grief is a completely normal reaction to loss. And so it's important to fully embrace that and recognize it and feel all the feelings. And, it's also okay to honor those that we lost. My father-in-law died in July from COVID. And I was talking to my kids about, how are we going to spend our first Christmas without Papa? And they want to create a Christmas ornament in his honor, because his life was wonderful. He was a wonderful person. So yes, we can grieve him, but it's also wonderful to honor and remember all of those happy memories, so that Christmas is not necessarily a negative holiday because he's not here, but it's also a chance to recall all of those positive memories.
Love that. Alicia, do you want to share your story?
I do. So Christmas is difficult for me. I became a widow on December 23rd, 2019, which was 2 days before Christmas. My husband passed. I have a young son. So trying to balance, the grief and the celebration of Christmas has been difficult, because you want to be happy and jovial for your child, but at the same time you are grieving. One of the things that I've learned on this grief journey is to give yourself grace. We have to really be kind to ourselves. And as Dr. Nicole mentioned, not pretending or, not hiding those emotions. So just really acknowledging the grief and acknowledging the memories and the love that was shared, but then again, being kind to myself. So all of those, that information about boundaries is very important as well. So respecting, myself, and knowing that if I'm not able or do not feel like attending a certain, event or holiday gathering, that giving myself the permission to stay home, and, giving myself permission to leave early. So it's very important, when navigating grief, to give yourself grace, show yourself kindness.
It is so important. And I love that you were able to share your personal story. So thank you for that. And Dr. Nicole, I have to say the ornament idea is so special. And one of my girlfriends, when my dad passed that first Christmas, and I always say the first are the hardest, but I don't know if the second and third get any easier. I always feel like the opportunity to give yourself permission to grieve and just to think and be sad. I think it is actually healing in a lot of ways too. But that ornament, every time I put that ornament on the tree, it just does something like it, it just sparks special memories. And I think that's a lovely idea. So I do it every year. So now I'm going to take some questions from our audience. How long after COVID should I wait before getting my next booster? So Dr. Alicia, do you want to?
So this is a great question. And I love that the question is acknowledging that after having COVID, that they want to still get a vaccine or a booster, because a lot of people believe that if they've had COVID, that they don't need to get the vaccination. So CDC recommends waiting about 90 days before getting your next booster. And then you also want to make sure that you aren't experiencing any symptoms before you get your next shot.
So 90 days for my audience. So this one, Dr. Nicole, I have an eating disorder and I find it hard to navigate food around the holidays. Do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, suffering with an eating disorder around the holidays is incredibly challenging, no matter which eating disorder, whether you're someone that restricts or someone that struggles with binging and purging. There's so many triggers. One, I hope that you have a treatment team that you work with, whether it's a therapist or a psychiatrist or a nutritionist, because your team will really support you and be your backbone during this time. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, planning when you're struggling with any type of mental health problem, but particularly eating disorder, is really important. Planning your menu in advance, planning what you're going to eat in advance, planning, if someone asks a question or mentions something about your weight, how you are going to respond to that. So again, that you don't feel like you're completely caught off guard, and you feel like that you're walking into a situation with a better understanding of how you might handle it. And even writing it out. I have some of my patients, we don't just plan, but we literally write out in their diary what the plan looks like, and they carry that with them. So they have that constant reminder. And even certain quotes like, even if so-and-so says that I'm overweight, that's not true. I am beautifully and wonderfully made. And, you have to sometimes just keep reminding yourself, because many mental health problems and like eating disorder, it's like this devil on your shoulder that's telling you all the things that are wrong, even if they're not true.
Great advice. Such great advice. And again, it's all you have a theme, planning, just planning. And I love it. It makes so much more sense. And it's so much easier if you kind of think through the evening or the week and have that plan in place. Our next question is, I have anxiety and depression year round. What do you recommend I do to manage the added stress of the holidays? Dr. Nicole?
Sure. So the first thing I would say, it's difficult to really know when to get help. But one, I would say everyone should get therapy, whether or not you're struggling. We can all benefit from having that individual time dedicated to us to process. So if you don't already have a therapist, certainly look for one. But also being aware of your triggers and your warning signs. So if you know that certain places or certain people trigger your anxiety or trigger your depression, as much as possible, try to avoid those, or at the very least be aware of them, so that you can hopefully address any potential symptoms before they come. And then also the warning signs. If you find that your typical warning signs are eating more or less, like Dr. Alicia mentioned, or sleeping more or less, or isolating yourself. If you start to see some of those warning signs coming out and realizing that those tend to come before you enter into a depressive episode or before you experience a panic attack, being aware of that, and also relying on your loved ones to help you, like letting them know what your warning signs are so that they can support you when you need that opportunity to step away or relief. And if it gets to the point where you're experiencing unsafe thoughts, please ask for help. There is a new number, a new text, or emergency psychiatric line that you can call, which is 988 24/7. And I always recommend that my patients just have that programmed into their phone if they need it. And then obviously, if it's urgent or emergent, going to your nearest hospital or emergency room.
Such great advice. Thank you both for carving out some time during this busy season. And before I wrap up, I want you to share your secret recipe for getting through the holidays. Can you share maybe one or two things that help you get through the holidays? Dr. Alicia?
So I like to keep a gratitude list, and it allows me to, although it's a sad time and it's a time of grieving for me, but it also allows me to focus on what I do have and be grateful for that. So I keep a gratitude list.
I love that. Dr. Nicole?
I try to take time off, honestly, even time off from celebrating the holidays. So before or after Christmas, I'll take a day off of work and sleep or rest or do nothing and ask my kids, please don't wake me up at 6 a.m. like you normally do. Like, mommy needs some time alone. Because I realized that I even need to recover from the holidays, and going right back to work after cooking and cleaning and celebrating. And as an introvert, being around people all the time is exhausting. And so I recognize that I need that rest. So I plan that buffer time in so that I can try to recover.
Oh my gosh, I love all your planning. I am totally infusing some of the advice that you gave today. Thank you both again for your time and for your great advice. And thank you for joining Women Talk. And thank you to my audience for joining us today for another great conversation. For more information on how you can stay healthy for the holidays and for some great gift ideas for the health conscious women, as well as some fun sex toys for the holidays, please visit healthywomen.org/healthy for the holidays. And don't forget to join us in next year. I love saying that, next year in 2023 for our breast cancer I Am a Previvor on January 11th at 12 p.m. We'll see you then. Thank you again and happy holidays.